Chapter 3 Troubled Waters How We Got So Confused. What are emotions? This seems to be a very simple question, and yet psychologists, behaviorists, neurologists, evolutionary biologists, and sociologists cannot yet agree on a clear definition. Is an emotion a mood, a feeling, an impulse, a neurochemical event, or all of these? Do emotions come from thoughts or instincts, or do thoughts and instincts arise from emotions? Can we call one emotion primary and another secondary? Do primates and other mammals share all of our emotions or just some of them? These questions are extremely important for researchers, and tremendous advances in psychosocial and neurobiological knowledge have occurred over the last half century. However, while categorization and classification systems are essential to science, they can have little connection to life as it is lived in the everyday world. These studies are fascinating, but they can drag us off point, which is that you and I want to understand our emotions right now and work with them in our everyday lives. I have concerns about classification systems anyways. Classification systems used in everyday life tend to lead people toward rigidity. I've heard people decree that. For instance, anger is negative and happiness is positive, or that anger is a secondary emotion. Actually, it's considered in most classification systems to be a primary or universal emotion, and you're really feeling something else, and so on. But that advice doesn't really help you or me in real life. Sometimes it will make us struggle to repress our honest negative emotions and feign the positive ones. Not a good idea if you want to understand all of your emotions. Even if we classify emotions down to a hairbreadth of accuracy, our understanding of what to do with emotions tend to remain pretty unsophisticated. The socially accepted view is that there are good emotions and bad emotions. These categories have a bit of interplay, but basically good emotions are the ones that make us easy to be around, while bad emotions are the ones that shake things up. The good emotion states are happiness, pleasantness, joy, and some forms of sadness, if an appropriately saddening situation has occurred, and if it has occurred within a recent time frame. Anger dips a little toe into the good category when it's a response to injustice, but the acceptable time frame for anger is a lot shorter than the allowed for sadness. Notice how people will let you be sad about a senseless death for a lot longer than they'll let you be angry about it. The bad emotions category is very large indeed. Sadness that lasts too long or deepens into despair or grief is definitely bad. Depression is bad, but suicidal urges in emergency room bad. Anger is bad, as are peevishness, righteousness, indignation, and wrath. Rage and fury, then, are extra strength bad. Hatred, we won't even go into. Jealousy is bad, bad, bad. Fear is so bad we've got bumper stickers that shout out to others that we, at least, haven't got any fear. Not a drop. So all the fear-based emotions are bad too. Anxiety, worry, and trepidation are bad. And panic is the call the hospital bad. Shame and guilt, they're so bad we don't even know what they mean anymore. We're persistently trained and implored to express or more often repress our emotions so that other people feel comfortable. We've neatly sewn up the emotions, and in doing so, we've sewn ourselves right into a straitjacket. Anyone who feels anything other than the light, fresh scented emotions is, by association, bad. The simplistic good bad system imprisons so many of us. We who are angry, we who are grieving, we who are fearful, we who feel shame. Many of us with legitimate emotional issues are pushed out of the way to make room for perky and superficial. Most of the emotional people languish on the fringe because even though we've categorized the heck out of emotions, we still don't treat emotions or the people who feel them intelligently. I've had the blessing of being forced to look at the emotions in unusual ways. Aside from my influences in childhood, my empathetic healing practice consisted of people who weren't finding help in conventional places. In many cases, people who finally ended up at my door had been through every modality they could afford. People don't go to empathetic healers first. Many had run the gamut of psychotherapy and conventional medicine. They've been through religious pursuits and numerous spiritual disciplines, and they've been through physical and dietary regimens to heal their traumas and quiet their minds and hearts. With these people, I couldn't fall back on any of the accepted or fringe treatments for emotional imbalance because all of those treatments had already failed to bring relief. I also couldn't fall back on accepted beliefs about emotions because those didn't work either. For instance, many of my clients thought that joy and happiness were the only healthy emotions, which is nonsense. Real joy and happiness can only exist in relation to all the emotions. They're a box set. We can't just pick and choose our emotions. That would be like picking and choosing certain glands or organs. I want only my heart and brain, none of the gooey digestive organs. Or deciding to walk using only the two most attractive toes on each foot. Joy and happiness are lovely in their place, but they're not by any stretch of the imagination better than fear, anger, grief, or sadness. Each emotion has its own valid place in our lives. Joy and happiness are just two states in a rich and brilliant continuum of emotions. Many of the people I work with had already tried to magically transform negative emotions into positive ones, turn anger into joy, or whatever, but that didn't work. Anger isn't joy, and joy isn't contentment, and sadness isn't grief. Each of our emotions has its own individual message, its own wants and needs, and its own purpose in the psyche. Our emotions can't change into something else just because we like them to. Transforming an emotion usually means repressing the life out of the real but unwanted one, and then fabricating a better one out of thin air, or affecting it as if it were a party hat. That kind of transformation looks good at first, but it eventually makes people confused and emotionally incoherent. I saw that the people who came to me for help were filled with ideas about their emotions, with shoulds and oughts and have tos, but they had no feeling at all for their emotions. They were disconnected from their feelings, and from their innate intelligence. My approach with each person has a clear ha, was to clear away all the suggestions and routines, all the categories and systems, all the fixes and crutches. We got back to the original situation, which was always that the person saw, felt, or experienced life in an unusual but valid way, considering the situations. When we got down to the truth of who they were, We created a secure atmosphere and looked at their emotions empathetically. When we brought empathy into the situation, we became more intelligent about emotions.